So this is Fraser. This is his first ride. He is the horse that I've had in my past 2 training videos, which showcases my initial exercises with a new horse and then my ground driving prep towards, first ride prep work. And that really transfers a lot in this first ride, and you're going to see that, so I'm excited to share that with you guys. Right here, I'm just putting weight in the stirrup, and I'm trying to get his head turned towards me. And when I go on him, I want to keep his head turned to the left, but I lost it just a little bit. So I'm trying to get my stirrup, and he's a little bit worried. All I'm doing is I'm sitting there just trying to get control of his head. If I can get control of his head and he can stand still, I can slowly start getting him comfortable, which is what I wanted. And what I'm going to do to start getting forward movement is, while I have his head turned, this was after a few minutes of hanging out with him, we're going to start getting forward movement, but we're not necessarily asking for straight movement. I just want him to turn into a small circle, and he does really, really well with that. Now, he doesn't understand leg pressure. He doesn't understand what that means forward, so I have a ground person that's going to help push him if he needs it. And so I'll start transferring the cue from a ground person pushing him, and he'll understand that my leg means the same thing to move forward. So it's a joint effort. And now I'm going to do the same exact thing I did to the left to the right. I'm having his head turn to the right, and we're asking for some forward movement in a circle. Now, while there's a lot of pressure coming from my legs, kicking him or doing a light tap with my feet, what's really happening is, he's very thick-skinned, he's very dull, pressure doesn't do much for him, so I'm going to have to be very active with my feet and my voice to try and encourage him to move forward. And he's eventually going to have less pressure from me, and it's going to be more my voice, and he's not going to need much to encourage him forward, but he has no clue what that means, so I do have to be a bit more active so he can learn about it. So after giving him a minute, I'm going to go back to turning him to a circle, but this time we're going to push him forward out of it. So I turned him, he understands what that means, and now I'm going to start pushing him forward on the rail. And he doesn't understand it at first, but he really does get it pretty quick, and you'll see that. Him having these sticky feet moments is totally fine and normal. I would totally rather have this than a horse that is super scared and panicky and wanting to run. He's thinking about it, he's stopping and thinking about it. And right about here, I believe, you can start seeing that when he does move forward, he understands to have that forward motion, and he just keeps on rolling forward, which I really, really loved. Now going the other direction, you can really see that forward movement is staying with him, and I really like that. He's really starting to get that forward motion in his walk, and that's really, really great. So now that he's comfortable at the walk, we're going to start asking for a trot. And I asked for the trot initially out of frame, and he finally gets that forward movement right as we're going by. And it's a little panicky at first. It's going to take him a bit to relax with the trot and understand all that crazy stuff going on up there isn't going to eat him. And he might have his moments where he gets sticky feet and wants to stop, but we're just going to use that ground person to push him forward, along with my cues from above to transfer over. And as soon as he first rolls into that trot, he has his moment or little burst of being worried, but he settles down really, really quick, which I really like about him. It doesn't take much for it to click with him, and he just learns really fast. So this is going to be our first halt from the trot, and you can see how responsive he is for a horse that this is their first time ever being asked to this. And I really cannot express enough how much the ground driving prep work helps them, because I got on this horse and he understood steering and stopping, and we didn't have to tackle that along with tackling desensitizing him to a rider and getting forward movement. one of those initial things he needs to know is already driven into him. So that really set him up for success with his first ride, and I really like that. So we tried both ways. He got comfortable. He was being super responsive in the bit. So I was really happy with that. So I was pretty much close to wanting to be done. I just wanted to canter him one direction, get him used to having a rider up there at all gates from this first ride so that he's prepared for future stuff. And after that, I was ready to be done. So we pushed him into that canter, and literally what I'm going to do is just sit there. I do not want to touch him. I really just want to be up there. I'm going to let it be all on my ground person to push him forward, because this is something that the horse has to figure out how to do. And, I shouldn't be getting in the way of this. This is forward movement that he needs to have, and I don't want to shut him down. And then once he was comfortable moving around, we brought him back to a trot. I asked him to trot from on top of him, and he did great. I let him move for a few steps, and then we asked for a halt, and he was so responsive, and he just did really amazing. He did really well with all the forward movement, but I wanted to make sure that's not all that he remembered. So I wanted to go back to some slow stuff and do some steering at the walk off the rail. I didn't want him to be engraved on that rail and glued to it, so I wanted to make sure I did some exercises like I did while ground driving him, doing some steering and circles, and just making sure he knew that he didn't have to always be on that rail. And he was so responsive. He's so amazing at picking up all this different stuff, and I was really, really happy with how he handled everything. And something else I want to point out is that when he gets stuck, you can see that I'm able to push him back forward on my own. My grounds person doesn't really have to do that much. He'll stay back and wait for me to ask him to go forward, and Fraser pretty much picks it up, and that's really, really great. Now to end this ride, I brought him to the middle and I stopped him. I hung out for a little bit and rubbed on him to make sure he didn't think that it was all work, work, work. And when I went to get off, I went a little bit fast since I've had a few situations with dismounting for the first time. So I kind of just wanted to get off and away from him. And he didn't really react that bad at all. He got a little nervous, but he's not super reactive. He's very safe when he does get scared, which I like. So I just went back and I approached him and just hung out with him for a little bit. As soon as I got off, I wanted to uncinch him, get him all loose in the girth, so it was just like a big relief for him. And this entire first ride went really, really well. He had no drama, which I loved, and he just really thinks through things really amazing. Like for most of the horses I've had in the past few months, there's been so much drama and being so reactive and not wanting to think through anything. So he really surpassed all my expectations and just did really well.